When we think of the American West, we think of a very specific kind of freedom. We imagine the cowboy, the open range, the horizon that stretches out forever, unbroken and unowned. It is a romantic image. It is the myth that America tells itself, that it is a country without boundaries. But in truth, the American West was not tamed by the Winchester rifle. It was not conquered by the bravery of men or the grit of pioneers. The West was killed, quite literally, by a piece of twisted metal. It is a mundane object. You can buy a roll of it at any hardware store. It is ugly, it is rusted, and it is sharp. But the barbed wire is the most significant political object of the modern era. It is the invention that allowed us to say, "This is mine." And in doing so, it taught us how to trap one another like animals. To understand the wire, we have to go back to 1870. The American plains were a problem. The government wanted to settle the land, but there was no wood for fences. You cannot build a stone wall across 1,000 miles of prairie, so the cattle roamed free. The West was a commons, a shared place where ownership was vague and fluid. Enter Joseph Glidden. In 1874, in Illinois, he patented a simple design: 2 strands of wire twisted together to hold a sharp, spur-like barb in place. It was marketed with a slogan that sounds like a prophecy: lighter than air, stronger than whiskey, and cheaper than dust. It worked. Suddenly, a homesteader could fence off 1,000 acres for a few dollars. The open range was sliced up into a grid of private fiefdoms. The cattle drives ended. The cowboy became a prison guard on horseback, patrolling the perimeter of a cage. The indigenous tribes, who had moved with the seasons for thousands of years, found their world physically barred. The wire turned the land into capital. It turned space into property. But technology is often never used as it was originally intended. If you can use a fence to keep cattle in, you can use a fence to keep men out. Or worse, to keep men in. By the turn of the century, the Devil's Rope had crossed the Atlantic. When World War I had broke out, the generals of Europe were still thinking in terms of cavalry charges and glorious advances. They did not understand what Glidden had created. They covered the fields of Flanders and the Somme with millions of miles of barbed wire. When the soldiers climbed out of their trenches, they didn't run into a fight. They ran into a web. They were caught, snagged on barbs like flies, and then they were mowed down by machine guns. The wire turned warfare from a mobile chess match into a meat grinder. It erased the concept of bravery. It didn't matter how brave you were, you could not fight a fence. The no man's land was defined by the wire. It was a space where no human was allowed to exist. But pretty soon we learned how to use barbed wire to keep people in. The 20th century has been defined by the camp. The concentration camp, the gulag, the internment camp, the refugee camp. All of these are architectural inventions made possible by barbed wire. Before the wire, a prison required high stone walls. It required massive labor and expense. A prison was a building. But with barbed wire, you can create a prison anywhere overnight. You hammer a few posts into the ground, you string the wire, and suddenly you have created a space of exception. Inside the wire, the laws of the outside world do not apply. Inside the wire, humans become something less. We see this in the Boer War. We see it in Nazi Germany. We see it in the Japanese internment camps in America. We see it today. The wire is a physical manifestation of the state's power to strip you of your rights. It is a line in the dirt that says, beyond this point, you are not a citizen. You are inventory. It is a terrifying power, and yet we have normalized it. We put barbed wire on top of our schools. We put it on top of our gated communities. We put it on our borders. We have covered the earth in this sharp, rusted iron because we are terrified of each other. There's a concept in philosophy called the sovereign power. It is the power to decide who lives and who dies, who is included and who is excluded. Barbed wire is the democratized version of that power. It allows anyone with a few dollars to become a sovereign of their own little patch of dirt. We like to think that we live in a free society. We talk about connection, about the internet, about a global village. But look out the window. Look at the lines that divide our homes, our businesses, our nations. We are more fenced in than any people throughout history. We accepted the trade. We traded the open range for the safety of the enclosure. We decided that we would rather be safe in our cages than free in the wild. Joseph Glidden died a very rich man. He was praised as a pioneer who tamed the West. But I wonder if he knew what he was really building. I wonder if he knew that his invention would become the symbol of the Holocaust, the symbol of the trench, the symbol of the border crisis. The wire is just metal. It has no morality. It does not hate us. It only does one thing. It divides. And as long as we are afraid of what lies on the other side of the fence, we will keep stringing it up, mile after mile, until there is no space left.